Welcome the awakened ones. Tread carefully with the perceived oddities in your midst, for the strange one might just hold the key to unlocking your next major breakthrough. Isn't it ironic how fortunes shift? One moment you're the enigma whispered about over mimosas, the next, the very essence of your being becomes an object of secret fascination. Your words are suddenly revered as gospel, your nuances mimicked as the latest vogue. The individual once overlooked is now the focus of rapt, silent observation. Here's the kicker: psychological research reveals that both admiration and envy ignite remarkably similar neural pathways. Meaning some of your fiercest detractors may simply be admirers in a state of confused disguise. Yes, really, the critic who once scoffed is now meticulously studying your evolution, captivated as if by a can't-miss series on their favorite streaming service. And the secret: you haven't drastically changed. You simply decided to stop minimizing yourself. But here's the unexpected: your quest wasn't for mere followers. You were focused on healing, growing, and embodying authenticity in a world saturated with pretense. That's the magnet. That's the reason they're transfixed. And the most astonishing part: the secret admirer might be the last soul you'd anticipate, the former supervisor who underestimated your potential, the ex who claimed indifference, the vanished friend, or perhaps even the person who once deemed you too intense, now finding enlightenment in your past social media captions. Prepare yourselves, because today we're delving into the depths of your newfound magnetism, identifying your hidden admirers and exploring why their applause resonates with a particular intensity when it originates from unexpected sources. Let's unpack it all. First, your radiance is a phoenix born from ashes, and that's what compels them. They're drawn to your luminosity, but they remain oblivious to the trials required to ignite it. The qualities most admired in you today, your fortitude, your tranquility, your vibrant energy, aren't innate endowments. They're the product of relentless construction from the ruins. This version of yourself is not a result of mere chance. You were forged in the fires of transformation, countless episodes of dismantling, reconstruction, vulnerability, periods of introspection, and an unwavering resolve to persist. They witness your brilliance, unaware of the crucible from which it emerged. The majority perceive transformations as superficial, but yours was profoundly spiritual. You exude a different kind of radiance because you've undergone deep healing. You overcame unspeakable challenges, and instead of succumbing to bitterness, you turned inward. You blossomed. And that is what they perceive. It's not merely about aesthetic enhancements. It's not solely your magnetic aura. It's the palpable essence of someone who has experienced emotional, mental, and even spiritual rebirth. Such profound metamorphosis cannot be fabricated, purchased, or instructed. It is earned through experience and profoundly felt. That's why their gaze remains fixated. Even if unacknowledged, they sense a distinct energy surrounding you. It's a blend of reverence and puzzlement. How can someone who has endured so much emanate such serenity? How can you be both gentle and unyielding, compassionate, yet astute enough to discern deception? You don't project victimhood. You exude triumph, but a subtle form, the kind that requires no declaration. The kind that speaks volumes through posture, boundaries, stillness, and presence. And now they gravitate towards you not only for your accomplishments, but for the journey of attaining them. You didn't resort to fanfare, grandiosity, or superficiality. You embraced authenticity. And in a world overflowing with counterfeit confidence masquerading as healing, you became the genuine embodiment of it. That's the reason for the rise in admiration. That's why former detractors are now observing with wide eyes and hushed awe. You transmuted your pain into presence. You transformed your ashes into a source of light. And now those who once dismissed you cannot avert their gaze. Second, their curiosity transcends casual interest. It reflects a yearning for spiritual fulfillment. Their attention isn't incidental or superficial. It's a deep-seated spiritual hunger. There's an element within you that awakens something within them, something they've been unconsciously seeking. Your manner of speaking deviates from convention. Your demeanor is distinct. You emanate purpose, tranquility, and an inner sense of conviction. And that's what has them spellbound. People are starved for authenticity. They've been saturated with manufactured connections, fabricated influencers, contrived strength, and hollow encouragement. But encountering you sparks a fundamental shift. Your presence feels different. You transcend the role of a mere voice online or another face in the crowd. You embody substance. There's truth in your essence. You seek not to impress, and that's precisely what captivates them. You have no need for validation because you possess an unwavering sense of self. And that self-awareness resonates with the part of them that feels adrift, uncertain, or unmoored. They don't simply admire your strength. They crave your clarity. They yearn to comprehend your understanding. They long to experience your sensations. It's as though you've unlocked a long-locked door and they're quietly hoping you'll grant them access. That's why someone unexpected is observing so intently. Perhaps they lack conscious awareness, but their soul knows. Their soul resonates with your vibrational frequency even if their rational mind lags behind. That's the essence of awakened souls. Your very existence challenges others not intentionally, but because you mirror the potential they've suppressed within themselves. When they perceive you, they glimpse their potential. If they were to relinquish pretense, cease performing, and initiate their healing journey, you are neither celebrated nor ostentatious. You lack the polished facade the world demands. But you are genuine, and genuine is a rare commodity. This rarity is what attracts them. They aren't merely admiring a person, they are responding to a frequency, and that frequency, that's truth, that's purpose, that's divine energy flowing through you. They may not entirely grasp their feelings, but they are certain they wish to continue experiencing them. Third, the one scrutinizing you secretly is frequently the one who publicly ridiculed you. The very individual now admiring you likely mocked you behind your back, and that is what renders it so surreal. They once dismissed your aspirations, mocked your unconventionality, and harbored the secret desire for your downfall. But now they observe you in silent awe, their eyes wide, because the person they disparaged is surpassing every limitation they imposed upon you. Their admiration is genuine. However, they will never confess it aloud because acknowledgement would necessitate admitting their misjudgment, and their ego cannot bear that burden. Their unforeseen element was growth, an extraordinary transformation that defies explanation. You defied their script. You didn't succumb to bitterness. You refused to remain confined to the role they assigned you. You underwent a metamorphosis. Your evolution evokes unease within them, forcing them to confront the truth they operated from a foundation of pride, fear, and ignorance. While you remained focused on your path, quietly elevating yourself, they grapple with the transformation of the one they once mocked into someone they now secretly admire. You embodied everything they declared you could never be. And now they are the ones with silent notifications enabled for your updates. They meticulously analyze your words, attempting to emulate your delivery, seeking to decipher your method of achieving success without seeking validation or conforming. They never envisioned you as an influencer, and now they find themselves inescapably influenced. The twist lies in their inherent goodness. They merely lacked the breadth of vision to perceive your greatness at the time. You intimidated them because you possessed an indefinable quality. You evoked a sense of vulnerability within them, not intentionally, but because your authenticity rendered their masks uncomfortable, prompting them to react with sarcasm and derision. That served as their defense mechanism. However, having risen above it all, they cannot refute what they observe: an exceptional individual refined by adversity, a chosen soul. Their silence is not indicative of ignorance. It represents reflection. They acknowledge their past actions, and now they recognize your true essence. Therefore, the existence of a secret admirer should not surprise you. They used to mock your journey, but now they scrutinize your every move as if it were a map to their own breakthrough. Fourth, you awakened something dormant within them. You did more than impress, you disrupted. Your presence wasn't solely for entertainment or gaining affection, but it resonated on a deeper level. It stirred a part of them they had buried under layers of performance anxiety and mistaken identity. You made no ostentatious displays. You imposed nothing, yet merely by embodying your authentic self, something within them was activated. A dormant light was ignited. You didn't inspire admiration, you catalyzed an awakening. They saw you and began questioning long-held beliefs. They pondered why they were leading a life characterized by falseness, heaviness, or disconnection. Why their confidence felt artificial, why their peace remained ephemeral. Your presence in the room inadvertently challenged their fundamental assumptions regarding strength, worth, and identity, and it shook them to their core. You possess a rare quality, not in appearance, but in your very essence. A profound sense of alignment emanates from within you. You know who you are. You have weathered the storm, and it manifests not in scars, but in your tranquility. That energy doesn't merely attract, it transforms, it challenges them without uttering a word. They begin rethinking everything. Their speech, their self-presentation, their private conduct, all because they encountered you. This transcends ego or praise. It's about purpose. Your energy carries truth, and truth invariably shatters illusions. You awakened something dormant within them. You reminded them of a forgotten aspect of themselves. An honest, audacious, untainted version, the one that existed before life hardened them, before fear prompted them to shrink, before shame compelled them to feign. And now they are unsettled in the most beneficial way. They are taciturn in your presence because they are engaged in introspection. They are observing you not because you are flamboyant, but because you awaken something within them. You aren't their role model, you are their mirror. And in seeing you, they recognized their potential before the world intervened. Fifth, you're living proof that mystique still thrives in a shallow world. You didn't adhere to the prescribed rules, you didn't pursue attention or seek recognition. While others were preoccupied with posting, proving, and performing, you remained focused on your path. You navigated life with quiet resolve, healed privately, and allowed your growth to unfold organically, and that has rendered you something rare, an enigma. In a society where individuals overshare for validation and sacrifice authenticity for applause, you emerged as someone who didn't require ostentation to be noticed. That quietude is magnetic. People struggle to decipher you, and that's the reason they're drawn to you. You don't provide easy solutions. You defy categorization. They struggle to determine whether you're serene or formidable, gentle or resilient, reserved or calculating, and that tension draws them back. You're the person they scroll past repeatedly only to return because something about you resonates, something about you lingers. In reality, your mystique isn't a calculated strategy. It's the byproduct of genuine healing. You didn't cease speaking to appear profound. You ceased speaking because you discovered the power held within silence. You allowed people to assume, speculate, project, and you continued building, and now the very individuals who once disregarded your presence are consumed by the fact that they still can't comprehend you. There's a sacredness to not being fully understood, a power in being untouchable even when visible. You left breadcrumbs, not blueprints. You shared glimpses, not your soul, and that restraint elicits greater respect than any proclamation. People are weary of filters, of noise, of striving to maintain a facade of perfection. You remind them of the importance of privacy, of possessing depth, of not needing to justify oneself. You demonstrate that remaining unknown in detail doesn't equate to being invisible in spirit. They don't know your complete story, and that captivates them because your unspoken words convey everything. In a world addicted to exposure, you remained concealed long enough to become rare, and now they are unable to look away. Sixth, they assumed you were easily dismissed, but you're unshakable. They expected you to crumble. They anticipated you would crack under duress or vanish after the dissemination of rumors. Your silence fostered the belief that you were weak. Your distance led them to assume you were defeated. However, they failed to recognize that your absence was strategic, not a surrender. You weren't concealing yourself. You were building, healing, listening, learning, and now they realize they grossly misjudged you. Your name was dragged into conversations intended to tarnish your image. People exaggerated events, fabricated narratives, and attempted to portray you through a distorted lens. Some laughed, some concurred, some simply observed, but none anticipated that you would emerge stronger, clearer, and more grounded than ever. You didn't respond with pandemonium. You didn't defend yourself at every turn. You allowed the falsehoods to dissipate, and while they were focused on tarnishing your reputation, you were elevating yourself with quiet consistency, and now the same voices that once conspired against you whisper again, but now with reverence. They're remarking, "They aren't who we thought," because you weren't ostentatious, but you remained steadfast. You weren't aggressive, but you were resolute. You didn't attempt to clear your name. You became the kind of person whose presence restores harmony without uttering a word. That unyielding energy you now exude didn't stem from accolades. It emerged from weathering storms without applause. You were tested, attacked, misunderstood, and you remained intact. You rebuilt yourself gradually, silently, without seeking recognition. And now, those who attempted to dismiss you have no option but to respect you, because you've demonstrated that true strength doesn't perform, it endures. Your resilience baffled them. Your serenity offended them. Your refusal to succumb to their traps exposed the limitations of their character. And now they appear bewildered because their intention was to bury you, not to witness your blossoming. The reality is they never expected you to be so resilient, so astute, so complete. And now their admiration is tinged with regret because they could have stood beside you, but instead they attempted to tear you down. And you merely persisted in rising. Seventh, you served as their mirror and they couldn't withstand the reflection. They didn't mock you because you were peculiar. They mocked you because they were afraid. You were a mirror they weren't prepared to confront. Your honesty, your vulnerability, your ability to present yourself without pretense, it exposed everything they were concealing. They were performing, pretending, conforming to survive while you stood raw, unfiltered, and unapologetically yourself. That terrified them more than they would concede. You didn't adhere to the script. You expressed your true sentiments. You walked away when it felt wrong. You displayed emotions they had been taught to suppress. And because they couldn't emulate you, they ridiculed you for doing so. They labeled you excessive, profound, or atypical, not because it was accurate, but because your freedom accentuated their captivity. They weren't judging you. They were reacting to the feelings your presence evoked: vulnerability. Your authenticity sparked discomfort, not because you were mistaken, but because you reminded them of a self they abandoned long ago. You evoked emotions they had suppressed, and rather than embracing them, they lashed out. Instead of seeking understanding, they resorted to jokes because ridiculing you was simpler than facing themselves. However, the script has been rewritten. Time has elapsed. Some have matured. Others have suffered life's hardships in the same manner they once ridiculed you, and suddenly you make sense. Suddenly your depth doesn't seem melodramatic. It appears wise. Your boundaries don't seem restrictive. They seem essential. Your silence is no longer peculiar. It is powerful. They now realize that you weren't being excessive. You were being genuine, and they couldn't cope then because they didn't know how to be genuine themselves. However, life has a way of humbling individuals. Now that their masks have shattered or their performances have depleted them, they perceive you differently. They finally comprehend that what they perceived as odd actually made you whole, and the most impactful aspect, you never sought vengeance. You didn't retaliate with their words. You allowed your actions to speak volumes. You continued to evolve. You remained true to yourself, and now the very mirror they once fled is the one they quietly examine, hoping to discover the same truth within themselves. Eighth, your lifestyle has evolved into their secret roadmap. They'll never admit it outright, but you've become the touchstone, the unspoken benchmark, the covert influence shaping their shifting perspectives, their deepened reflections, and their increasingly impassioned discourse. They don't repost your content, but they often peruse it. They refrain from commenting on your words, but they capture screenshots of your quotes and store them. They tread your path surreptitiously, hoping their guiding light remains unacknowledged. They previously dismissed your chosen lifestyle, your boundaries, your introspective nature, your focused pursuits. They derided it as odd, excessive, or superfluous, yet now they're discreetly emulating it. Those who formerly mocked your discipline now endeavor to cultivate routines. The ones who once dismissed your spiritual discourse now disseminate it as their own wisdom. They witnessed your unwavering dedication despite the absence of applause. They observed you persevere, evolve, and align your actions without seeking attention. And through that process, you became their silent mentor. They won't concede it because acknowledgement would entail admitting their misjudgment. It would require acknowledging that the truth was before them all along, yet they rejected it. Pride prevents them from offering you deserved accolades, but imitation reveals a respect they're too proud to vocalize. They mimic your cadence because it carries gravitas. They adapt their vocabulary to mirror your aura. They subtly and cautiously adjust their belief systems, always avoiding mention of your name, yet invariably tracing your steps. They're striving to attain what you've discovered without admitting you were the trailblazer. You didn't just inspire them, you rewired them. You didn't lecture them, you demonstrated. You became the embodiment of an alternative way to live authentically, profoundly, spiritually, and unapologetically. And that leaves an enduring impact even in silence. What they replicate transcends your style. It's your essence, and that accounts for its staying power. You became the unspoken roadmap they refuted needing. And although they may never credit you, your influence is evident in their present demeanor. It's apparent in their momentary pause before reacting, their deliberate contemplation before speaking, their gradual transition towards becoming more of who they were meant to be. All because you illuminated the path without conscious effort. Ninth, what they applaud now is what they once sought to undermine. It's almost ironic how the very things they once criticized you for are now the qualities they admire in others. Your gentleness, formerly perceived as weakness, is now extolled as emotional intelligence. Your independence, which made them uneasy, is now celebrated as strength. Your discipline, once labeled controlling or rigid, is suddenly regarded as inspiring, and your intuition, the very faculty they ridiculed and dismissed, is now what they're diligently trying to cultivate. They didn't despise those qualities, they merely resented observing them in someone who reminded them they had inner work to do. The truth is, you were never the source of the problem. You were simply ahead of your time. Your clarity made them feel vulnerable. Your self-respect compelled them to examine their own lack of boundaries. And because they couldn't align with your position, they attempted to tear you down. This is the typical response when individuals feel threatened, yet lack understanding. They attack what they don't yet possess the courage to embody. You weren't overly intense, sensitive, or atypical. You were merely operating from a higher plane. They labeled your radiance as excessive because it amplified the shadows within them. But now, after enduring life's humbling experiences, after undergoing some form of breakdown or awakening, they perceive those traits through a new lens. Now they recognize your gentleness as power, your independence as wisdom, your discipline as self-mastery, and your intuition as divine guidance. They now espouse the very qualities they sought to eradicate within you. They repost content echoing sentiments you voiced years ago. They're finally embracing the traits you always possessed, albeit not within you, because it's easier to celebrate those traits in someone else than to concede they stifled them in you out of fear, jealousy, or ignorance, and that's the uncomfortable truth. They attempted to break the very qualities they now seek. You were never excessive. You were simply precocious. You were the embodiment of the lesson before they were ready to grasp it. And now every time they laud those traits in another, it simply reaffirms your righteousness. 10th, they've been haunted by your response to disrespect. They didn't anticipate your composure. They expected an outburst. They expected anger, pandemonium, perhaps even retaliation. But what they encountered instead was something unexpected: your silence, your maturity, your ascension. You didn't scream. You didn't expose. You didn't reciprocate their disrespect. You simply rose above it, leaving them speechless. And now that moment replays endlessly in their minds. You made them uneasy not through your words, but through your silence, because they were counting on your reaction. They wanted a spectacle they could exploit. They were poised for drama, for conflagration, for evidence of your instability or bitterness. So to wrap it all up, remember this: your journey, with all its unique twists and turns, is a powerful catalyst. The shift you're seeing, the hidden admiration, the quiet respect, it's all a testament to your authenticity, your resilience, and your unwavering commitment to your own growth. Embrace the journey, trust your inner compass, and know that even those who once doubted you are now, in their own way, acknowledging the incredible light you bring to the world. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Have you experienced something similar? What resonated most with you? Leave a comment below, ask a question, or just join the discussion. Let's create a space for shared experiences and supportive insights. And if you found this helpful, inspiring, or just plain thought-provoking, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on future explorations of self-discovery, personal growth, and navigating the complexities of human connection. Until next time, keep shining. Keep shining, keep shining, keep shining.